Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, we are recapping day one of free agency. A lot of news to get into. Some Eagles leaving, some staying. We'll get into it.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcoming Eagles fans to a Monday edition of the show. I'm Louis DiBiase, as always, joined by my co-host Gino Camilleri. We're your only daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And what a day it was today, opening day of free agency, the legal tampering period. But I basically say it's the opening of free agency. Technically, players can't sign contracts until Wednesday, and they could pull a Frank Gore 2015 and pull out, but normally they don't. Today's normally the day you hear a lot of the breaking news to start the window. And, Gino, there was a lot of news for the Eagles. They kept 3 free agents so far this past week, including 2 today, and they've lost 5 so far. So we're going to get into it, but here to recap what happened so far over the last few days. Brandon Graham is re-signed. Jason Kelce announced today he will not retire. He's going to run it back in 2023. That's huge news. And Brett Toth also re-signs, a backup tackle. When it comes to departures, TJ Edwards signs with the Chicago Bears, Javon Hargrave to the San Francisco 49ers, Marcus Epps to the Las Vegas Raiders, and then Andre Dillard signs with the Tennessee Titans. So you gain 3, keep 3, I should say, and lose 5. I would say, Gino, it sucks. You don't want to lose your defensive quarterback, an elite interior pass rusher, and a safety on the rise all in one day. But at the same time, we expected most of these, and they aren't really make or break departures. We knew how he was going to be disciplined about certain positions and players at certain ages.
Trust me, I love Javon Hargrave.
Same.
As much as anybody
21 million though, Gino? My God.
A year. 21 million.
I hate more where he signed. I just hate that he's with Rick Armstead and Bosa on that Niners defensive line.
But they don't have the one position that really matters in football, Lou.
Yeah, that's why they can pay him. Yeah.
And that's why they can pay him $21 million.
I like that way to look at it for sure.
That was the one deal that was expected. And
right.
Honestly, that one put me at peace with the whole Chauncey Gardner-Johnson situation, because if Chauncey had a team that was offering him some crazy deal that was so far outlandish and out of what Philadelphia was paying him, don't you think he would have taken that by now, like Javon Hargrave has?
If he was going to get the Jesse Bates deal, which was 16 per year,
16
I think,
per
for Atlanta,
year. Yep.
He would have got it.
Without a doubt. And Jimmy Ward, as we're speaking right now, just signed with the Houston Texans. You had Von Bell signing with the Panthers.
Yep.
There's still big names out there. I mean, there's Jordan Poyer, Nasir Adderley, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Juan Thornhill. That market is only going to continue to get better for the Eagles, in my opinion. But the other positions, when it comes to linebacker with TJ Edwards, that was the only deal that I thought the Eagles might be in on with that number, 6.5 per year going to Chicago. That was announced relatively early. So I don't think the Eagles had much intention of keeping him around anywhere near that number. Maybe it's Kaiser White, and it's definitely Nakobe Dean. And at the end of the day, Lou, outside of the safety position, they have backup options and guys that are ready to step up to the plate. You talk about right guard, the Cam Jurgens conversation has taken a little smoke to where there's fire today, that more people are seeming to be in on the idea with Jason Kelce coming back that Cam Jurgens could play a year there at right guard with Isaac Seumalo going to eventually sign somewhere else. Javon Hargrave has Jordan Davis to back him up.
Milton Williams, I would say, too.
Milton Williams as well. You look at the linebacking position, Nakobe Dean is going to hop right in there. Safety is the one where I'm really sweating a little bit, but with Howie Roseman, he gets guys in August where he got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson last year. You can't panic with him. It's day one.
I would say, too, with Epps leaving for Vegas, hopefully that means the attention is on CJGJ in re-signing Gardner-Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was the report earlier today from our boy Jeff Kerr from CBS, and it looked like Clark from NBC also confirmed that the Eagles are pursuing this extension still with Gardner-Johnson. So, again, you don't want to lose Marcus Epps, but at the same time, if you're going to keep one of those safeties, and that was likely always going to be the result, you definitely want it to be Gardner-Johnson. So if you can keep CJGJ there, You have Nakobe Dean, like you said, for TJ Edwards. You have Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, and you're going to add free agents and a high draft pick at defensive tackle because you're likely going to lose Fletcher Cox too. Sounds like he's got a pretty decent market right now. They all have replacements, so it's not ideal to lose all these guys, but I'm really not panicking by any of these moves. If they lose CJGJ and Slay's gone and Bradbury and you lose that entire secondary, then that's an issue.
Without a doubt, and it is way too early to panic, and it's day one, and free agency officially doesn't kick off until Wednesday. We still have to hear the Jalen Hurts contract, which is a huge holdup for everything.
It's gotta drop.
It has to come at some point before Wednesday, I would presume. And if you look at the way that Howie Roseman has operated, he's not going to pounce at deals that take him out of his comfort level, and that's what got him into trouble post 2017 when he guaranteed more money to Alshon Jeffrey. He gave out these Band-Aid type signings that really did them no good at the end of the day. And you have to just sit on your hands and say, maybe we're going to sit there and get more comp picks because teams are willing to overpay. And I've been around the block a couple times. Right. I'm not going to be that general manager that at the end of the day, everybody is laughing at by signing Andre Dillard for $9.7 million.
Right. I think the only one that I'm a little interested in when it comes to money was Edwards. So he signed a 2-year deal worth $6.5 million average per year with the Bears. And when you look at, I was kind of surprised he only got that. I thought he was going to be at 8 to 10. And you look at all the linebackers that got paid today, Gino, it was crazy. I mean, Tremaine Edmonds got paid in Chicago. Alex Singleton got a nice contract extension. There were a bunch of players. The Giants, I can't remember the Colts guy's name. He's good.
Bobby Okereke.
Yes, thank you. He got a nice contract today. So the fact that Edwards only got 6.5 per is interesting, and I would have liked the Eagles to bring him back on that. But, you know, he is from Chicago, so maybe he wanted to go home, and the Eagles do have Nakobe Dean still. So, again, they were probably just very disciplined. They don't like to pay linebackers, and maybe you re-sign Kazir White, like you mentioned, on a cheaper deal, and he's from Philly, so maybe he's willing to give out that hometown discount. And I know that's an undersized linebacking core, Gino, but that's a lot of speed and coverage ability, and that's what you want in the modern day, especially flowing behind Jordan Davis.
That was my thought exactly. And when you look at their method of operations, it has just continued to phase away from the clod-hopping Zach Browns of the world that we had to watch a few years ago, right? And Alex Singleton, who got signed today, there's a reason the Eagles are trying to move away from those guys. They're trying to get pure athleticism, sideline to sideline type of guys that can patrol that intermediate area so they can play that type of defense behind where they go more defensive backs than they do linebackers, more pass rushers than they do linebackers. And there's a reason the market is what it is. And you looked into getting Nakobe Dean last year in the 3rd round. You don't need to go out and overpay at a position where you tend not to pay. And the Eagles have seemed to get by okay with the linebacker position. And I think Kazir White is going to come back for, let's say, even if it's a 1-year, $4 million year, 2-year, $10 million deal. If he hasn't gotten a deal by now, in my opinion, I think Philadelphia is a place that should interest him because he's going to be probably the green dot. He would be the signal caller if you think about it. He's the returning guy. Marcus Epps is gone. Chauncey hasn't signed back yet. He potentially could leave.
Sure.
TJ Edwards is gone. You're going to trust a first-year Nakobe Dean to come in there and call the plays. But see, Gino,
I wouldn't bat an eye, though. I'm really
I'm for it.
Yeah,
why not?
I'm really excited to see Nakobe Dean next year. Did he play a lot last year? Not at all. It was almost a redshirt season, but when he did play in the preseason, when he saw those snaps against the Giants and the Titans, instantly you felt his presence known. And so I think it is exciting to see the Georgia combo really take over next year. Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, and Milton Williams took a huge step down the stretch last year in the second half of the season in the playoff run. So there's work to be done. And again, you don't want to lose all of these players, but to me, more so, my focus is just taking care of the secondary because they do have replacements and they're going to invest more in draft capital and free agent contracts with that front 7. Gino, before we take a break, real quick on the Andre Dillard front, no surprise here, right? I mean, offensive linemen tend to get overpaid, especially a former first-round pick. The Titans are going to start him. So he's been solid the last 2 years when he's played a left tackle, but the Eagles needed more versatile backups anyway, right? I mean, you need a backup tackle to be able to play both sides and maybe guard, and Dillard just wasn't that player. So they definitely need to add offensive line depth, but I don't think this was a shock.
No, and Jeff Stoutland has spoken well of Andre Dillard over the last 2 seasons, and I think you saw in his
good
play.
In Tennessee. I mean,
no, absolutely. And our friend over at Locked On Titans, I was talking to him, Tyler Rowland. He was saying that they most likely will invest their first-round pick in a left tackle in Tennessee and play Andre Dillard at left guard to get a starting left guard who's, I would say, probably one of the top 20 guards in football at that position. He's bulked up. He's gotten better against the run. He's not going to be trusted to play left tackle where he's going to be on an island. He's most likely going to have center help. I think that's a good deal for Tennessee. And you got a young core there. They're rebuilding. Why not? Give him a chance. I'm happy because at the end of the day, Lou, $9.7 million
that's
per.
A comp pick,
that's a
man.
5th round comp pick, brother.
For
we got
Dillard.
4 right now.
Yeah,
4
2024.
Right,
you're going to have a lot of draft capital. I do think it's crazy, though, Gino. Andre Dillard is the first-round pick that you traded up for in 2019. He's supposed to replace Jason Peters, who's an undrafted tight end switching positions, and he's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. And it's not Dillard that takes over for that guy. No, it's a 7th-round rugby player that never played football.
Right.
It's just funny. The Eagles at quarterback and left tackle, 2 of the most important positions, the guys they've gotten, their cornerstones, have come from unexpected ways. Left tackle and quarterback's the same way. Nick Foles was a 3rd-round backup that won you a Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts was a 2nd-round backup that got you to a Super Bowl. You trade up for Carson Wentz, and he's not the one that pans out. It's funny how that's worked at 2
Big V, too. Toss him in that conversation.
2 marquee positions. Yeah, Big V's a 5th-round pick that was your key swing tackle in 2017.
That's how it works, and the Eagles are going to continue to do that. And somebody on the Eagles Twitter sphere tweeted that every time the Eagles talk to an undrafted free agent or somebody that's a journeyman player, that they should look at the Marcus Epps and TJ Edwards deals and say, hey, you come here, you're a hardworking player, you work your way onto teams, you have a spot in sub packages, you could eventually come here, get a starting role, and at the end of the day, make 10+ million guaranteed going forward over those 2 contracts that those guys got. Why not come to Philadelphia and be one of those role players? Because that's what it's going to have to be, Lou. Howie Roseman is going to have to hit on those value guys. It's going to have to be the route that the Chiefs have taken, the dynasty that the New England Patriots had taken before. When you paid Donovan McNabb, it was the same thing. You've been in this situation. Now just get the quarterback deal done so we could see everything else fall into play.
Absolutely. Gino, there was a big keep today, Jason Kelce. We talked about it earlier in the show. We'll get into Kelce running it back in 2023. Coming up next on this Monday edition of Locked On Eagles. And guys, today's show is sponsored by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought you'd make a good GM, you got to try this game. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty, and we love playing GM. It's why me and Gino are so into the offseason, going through Mock Draft Monday, off-season simulations, going through the free agent period. It's why so many of us love Madden and fantasy football. So you got to give Ultimate Football GM a try. We did a lockdown league this year competing against our friends from the network. It was awesome to compete throughout the season. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms. So backload those deals, front load those deals. You got to figure it out. Navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft injuries, player personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season. All in this challenging and realistic game world. You also don't have to play with Wi-Fi. Play on the go. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and, as I said, playable offline. Locked On Eagles listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when they use the promo code Locked On in the game store. That's LOCKEDON in all caps. That's Locked On. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the App Store. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Eagles fans, we're continuing on this Monday edition of Locked On Eagles, recapping a crazy day 1 of free agency across the NFL. The Eagles lose Andre Dillard, Javon Hargrave, Marcus Epps, and TJ Edwards. Do you know, am I missing anybody there?
I think you kept saying 5 in the first segment. And
Yeah,
I was
4.
confused.
I'm sorry.
They've only lost 4.
They
Okay.
only lost 4.
I thought you knew something
Yes.
that I didn't.
No,
And I was waiting
I hope
for you
I
to
don't
say
at
it.
least.
Okay. All right. So
Yes.
our fans, we've only lost 4.
We've only lost 4.
as
We've
of
only lost
now.
4. One that they kept today, Gino, which was big. We got Brandon Graham last week. This week, Jason Kelce decides he's running it back for 2023. You saw that awesome video of him and Howie Roseman taking a shot to celebrate when they were on the New Heights podcast. And this is big, man. This is the biggest move you could have had of all of these free agents that were up in the air, because he really is, I think, the MVP outside of Jalen Hurts on that offense. You can make the case it's him and Lane Johnson, but this is a first ballot Hall of Famer still at the top of his game. And it's why I'm still so confident in this team being a Super Bowl contender next year. You can lose all that defense, and the way this offense is set up, I'm still believing.
To what they said in their little toast that they had, Howie Roseman and Jason Kelce in that video from New Heights to Vegas, baby. You got a lot of work to do. That's exactly what they said. And that's the goal. They know what they want to do. They want to run it back. And anybody who has a problem with this happening, it's not Jason Peters where this guy is off the field 35% of the season. Jason Kelce doesn't miss time. He's an Iron Man. He's somebody that's there. He's the second quarterback of your offense. You have multiple backup plans for him now between Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson going into another draft that is high with versatile interior offensive linemen. You keep this guy in-house for as long as he is willing to play. Unlike a guy like Fletcher Cox, who I love so much, where it's like, you're going to probably have to overpay for him to keep him.
He would have to sign the BG deal to come back, Gino,
exactly.
Kelce deserves the top tier money he's
still an all-pro, in my opinion.
And BG probably deserves the money Cox is getting more than Cox does, and BG took the team-friendly deal.
It's just the value of it, though, Lou. And the center market has always been what it is. It's not one of those things that really goes up a crazy amount. It's usually somewhere between $13 to $16 million, where I would expect him to be again. And heck, I'll pay him
money
that.
Well spent.
It doesn't matter, because Landon Dickerson is on a rookie deal. The guy who's probably going to play right guard, Cam Jurgens, or whatever it is, if it's Jack Driscoll or you draft another guy, is probably going to be on a rookie deal. You could pay Jason Kelce because you only have to pay 3/5 of your offensive line right now. And the Eagles, out of anybody, will continue to protect their quarterback and give him the best option forward, and that is behind and taking snaps from Jason Kelce. There's no other alternative going into 2023. Unless he were to retire, then we'd have to find an option. But the best plan forward right now, Lou, is to get this guy who's continuing to play all-pro level ball at the center position and allow him and Jalen Hurts to continue that bond that they have.
In pass protection, the run game, elite leadership, one of the characters of this city that just makes it so much more fun to root for this team. Yeah, keeping him is a no-brainer. To me, he has, as long as he plays at this level, he can stay for as long as he wants, regardless of who they've drafted to replace him. He is truly that valuable. And it'll be interesting, though, for sure, because like be hard, but there are other options as well. So we'll see what happens. But again, I'm not pushing Kelce out the door. Worth every penny that he's going to get. This offense is, and it's different with Lane Johnson, because as you mentioned, Kelce doesn't get hurt. So we don't really know what this offense looks like without 62, but I don't really want to know what it looks like. It would definitely be different.
It absolutely would. But right now you don't have to worry about it. And when you say that word retirement, it usually is the end all be all. And if you look at guys in the UFC or boxing, for example, as soon as that's on their mind and they fight another fight, it usually goes bad for them. And that's the worst case scenario for any professional athlete. Jason Kelce, he had mentioned it, but you could tell that fire is still there, man. The way he talks about it, how he talks on New Heights, bringing in Howie Roseman and telling him there, like he knew he was coming back. He had that fire after the Super Bowl. You just knew it. And there's no way he's going to go out like that. And if he has another chance to run it back with this team, Lou, it's smart. It's like investing, like ride that wave. Continue to pump money into this Eagles offensive line. Continue to buy stock, because as long as Jeff Stoutland is there, as long as Lane Johnson is there, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and all those guys playing at that level, and Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, why would you not want to come
That's
back
the
if you're
part,
Jason
man.
Kelce?
Jalen Hurts truly put life back into that older Eagles core because
100%, Lou.
I remember that picture of Kelce, Ertz, and Wentz talking after that
Mhm.
final game in 2020, and I thought Kelce was done. And even after 2021, you could have been like, okay, are they really going anywhere with this? Is Jalen Hurts that guy? If not, does Kelce have 3-4 more years to wait around to see if they're a contender? Hurts, I mean, Brandon Graham said it last week. He's like, it's not about the money. Jalen is that guy. I want to win a championship with Jalen. And of course, Kelce is very close with his quarterback. You know, that's a huge reason that he's coming back. So it just shows what having a franchise quarterback can do. And it's great to have Kelce and Graham back, man, because they're not just elite on the field, but they're elite leaders. And it's special to see how long they've been here. I mean, I have literally grown up watching these guys since I was a kid. I mean, they've been through every era with us, and that's definitely special to have around. And the fact that they're still this good is awesome.
I think that's a great way to kind of tie in, like, if they were to have left, it definitely would have stung, right? And I know a lot of people
just feel like the Eagles, man. Like when you think of the Eagles, they're in that top tier.
Right. And I think it'll be the closest feeling when those two do leave. And Fletch will probably be the first one of that group that it's like Donovan and Doc.
I would say Doc
and Westbrook.
Sure. Yeah.
That when those three left within, I think it was like a 13-month time frame, that's really when it felt like the changing of the guard was official.
Because they're the face, man. I mean, Dawkins was the face, I feel like, and he was the fan favorite of this fan base. And I feel like that's Graham and Kelce too, especially.
Yeah, exactly. BG. Yeah. I mean, just the way those guys carry themselves.
Yeah.
I will never fault the Eagles for keeping players that, one, are great leaders, two, have been underdogs. I mean, talk about two underdog stories from two different parallels. BG written off as a first-round bust. Jason Kelce, a 280-pound center out of Cincinnati, comes here in the 5th round.
Right.
Both of these guys are fire Hall of Famers, in my opinion. I mean, Brandon Graham should be a Hall of Famer with his production. Jason Kelce is surefire. Both of them will have their numbers retired in the rafters. And at the end of the day, Lou, when you can identify a player with a city, which we always talked about with Doc, which we always talked about with some of those great players on that defensive line, that's what these two are. I mean, the Reggie White comparison to Brandon Graham, they might not play the same, the way they lead on the field, what they do, play for the city of Philadelphia. What more could you add? I'm so happy that Brandon Graham is back.
They're still good, Gino. That's the thing. This isn't how we being
$6 million for double-digit sacks, Lou, and you're going to get Jason Kelce for what, $12 to $14 million? That's a bargain all day long.
Exactly. This isn't how we holding on to a guy that's long in the tooth just because of what he's done. It's what they're still going to do. These two are still instrumental on both sides of the football. So big to get Jason Kelce back. Even with all these departures, Gino, he was, to me, the number one guy to figure out what he's going to do. And I think that would impact this team the most. What comes next? We'll get into that coming up next as we finish up this Monday edition of Locked On Eagles.
Before we finish up the first day of free agency, no matter what anybody tells you, we have a message from our friends over at the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Eagles podcast, FanDuel. We're at the midway point of the NBA season. The Sixers are en fuego, folks. It's looking like Joel Embiid is going to win the MVP. Make sure, if you want to get in on the action, it's March Madness too, Lou. What better time than to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets? If you don't win, you will get up to $1,000 back. Hey, go all in on a team in March Madness that you love. And guess what? It's basically risk-free with the no-sweat first bet. I used it this weekend. Marquette first half, used some bonus bets in there, got some money back. And there's only one place that I've been doing it for the longest time. It's over at FanDuel on this trusty little device called your phone. Go there, download the FanDuel app today, or go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Bet on any sport. The NBA is cooking right now. Sixers are hot. Come on, Sixers. Go to FanDuel.com today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, Eagles fans, we're wrapping up this Monday edition of Locked On Eagles, recapping day one of the legal tampering window in NFL free agency. The Eagles lose 4 free agents. They have kept 3 so far. What's next? That is the main question. Right now, still things are up in the air with James Bradberry, with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, with Darius Slay. Gino still got to see when this Jalen Hurts contract comes up. Isaac Seumalo, I mean, look at Lindstrom today, got what, 20 plus a year? I mean, Seumalo's probably going to cash in. Yep. Miles Sanders is the top free agent running back. There's still a lot to figure out, and I'm sure it's going to be a hectic next few days. I think the Hurts deal, as you mentioned, it's got to drop almost any time now.
It has to at some point. But up until now, let's focus on what has happened. The Eagles have kept 3 free agents. All have been in-house free agents. They haven't brought anybody in, so that means nothing counts against them for the compensatory pick formula. But when it comes to losing players, the Eagles have lost 4 so far. This is from our great friend, Jimmy Kempski, the comp pick guru. The Eagles have 4 comp picks as it stands, and this can always change. You can get up to 4, but the lower ones will cancel out with lower contracts, so on and so forth. If you sign a guy for more, it'll probably cancel out that 3rd round pick. But the Eagles have a 3rd with Javon Hargrave right now, who signed for $21 million per year with San Francisco. They will get a 5th round comp pick from Andre Dillard, who signed $9.7 million per year. A 6th rounder for TJ Edwards and Marcus Epps, respectively. TJ Edwards, $500,000 more at $6.5 million over Marcus Epps, who is at $6 million. So let's say Isaac Seumalo gets $18 million a year, Lou. Most likely one of those lower comp picks will cancel out. They'll get another 3rd round comp pick. You have to be liking that if you're Howie Roseman, knowing that it is tough to stomach these guys walking, right? It definitely is. But if you've seen teams that have been successful allowing great players to walk, I referenced the New England Patriots and their dynasty the other day. Sometimes that's what's going to have to happen. But in a year or two, let's say these guys don't work out, a team comes a call and the Eagles say, hey, we'll get this guy for you for a bucket of baseballs. Send him on over. That's something that could potentially happen. And I think the Eagles will end up signing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back. I'm going to speak it into existence. It just seems too good to be true at this point.
Yeah.
If not, give me Nasir Adderley. Give me Juan Thornhill. Maybe they're a little bit cheaper for your liking. I think the wide receiver market will eventually heat up.
Crazy. Nobody has signed yet at the position.
Not one. And once you see one of those big names go, probably a Juju Smith-Schuster, for example, to a team, you'll see more come in. And the reserve offensive lineman and defensive lineman position, Lou, I'm interested to see who their value signings are, because they're going to walk away with at least 1 to 2 of
because remember, Fletcher Cox still is out there, and I think he's going to end up cashing in. The Cleveland Browns is where I'm thinking he's going to go back with Jim Schwartz.
Yeah, Draymond Jones just signed to Seattle, so it seems like Cleveland has a big hole at that interior defensive line.
Zach Allen got a big deal. The former Cardinal went to Denver, so the defensive tackle market right now, pretty lucrative. But yeah, the Eagles are going to have to sign guys for sure. You have Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, but they're going to want to add veteran depth for sure. I'm just, that secondary is really where I'm focused right now, Gino. I want it. I know they're not going to be able to bring back all 3 of these guys, but Slay, Bradberry, and CJGJ, I'd really like to make it work with 2 of the 3.
If you could. I mean, the money that has gone out, let's see right now. So if you're looking at per year AAV, the guys that have signed away from Philadelphia, it is $45 million. So $45 million that you don't have to spend on players, right? And isn't allocated to positions that they have signed back yet. Safeties have gone, linebackers have gone, a defensive line player is gone, and an offensive line player is gone. 4 positions where you believe, and I believe, that they will probably invest money into at some point. You have to say, and you have to believe in your heart of hearts, that Howie Roseman has these guys on a line still, and he's going to allow them to go out there and test the market, and that's what these 3 days are about. But if it's $1 million difference, Lou, I think you got to buck up, because these guys aren't aging players. I mean, even James Bradberry, who's close to 30, he's still a second-team All-Pro player.
Exactly.
Not going to get worse next year. And either is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming off a career year. Allocate the resources to elite-level players. I get not wanting to pay good to replacement level players.
Yeah, like Edwards and Epps. I get why you don't want to bring back even Edwards at 6.5. And I get you have to be disciplined with 30-plus-year-olds. like Slay and Bradbury. But to me, you got to make it work with one. You don't want to go into next year with two brand new starters. One's a bridge, short-term deal, and one's a rookie. I want to make it work with at least one of those players. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for sure. There are still some other options out there, but I think the good sign was I thought Bradbury was out, Gino. And then yesterday he talked to Josina Anderson and said that the Eagles are still very interested and they want a chance to match what another team offers. So that's definitely a good sign. So just to me, if you can get it done with one of those corners in CJGJ, the rest of these departures I'm okay with and I was pretty much prepared for.
Yeah, you have to be at this point. And going back to those names that I mentioned in 2009 and 2010 when they left with Donovan McNabb and Brian Dawkins and Brian Westbrook and seeing that core leave, I'm so numb to seeing players leave at this point. And I think most Eagles fans, yeah, it is. And I made this reference today too, Lou, that signing offensive linemen and defensive linemen is like getting clothes when you're a kid. And how for Christmas that is, or whatever your respective holiday is, that the more you grow older, the more you appreciate it. Like if they walked away with just a defensive lineman and another reserve offensive lineman, I mean, you walked away with Jason Kelce today, and you're probably going to draft a top player at the defensive line and probably draft a top player on the defensive backfield. You just have to play the punches that you were dealt and play the cards you were dealt. They don't have the cap. They knew they weren't going to have the cap. They signed players last year. They drafted players last year. They kept a lot of their own. They still have a very good roster, folks. Like, don't panic right now.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of guys locked up. There's a lot of guys locked up. And even some of these replacements on defense, you got to be excited for Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Nakobe Dean. So there's work to be done. But remember what happened last year? They signed Hassan Reddick and it was quiet for a while. And then a few months later, we're talking about this team having one of those complete rosters in football. So lot to be done. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles, a show Monday through Friday. We're going to recap all of the news because Howie Roseman is not done. Also, we're available on YouTube and on Twitter at Locked On Birds, at GC24_football, and at DiBiase LOE. Thanks for making Locked On Eagles your first listen every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. They provide in-depth coverage of the biggest NFL draft prospects with deep dives into sleepers and hidden gems that can change your favorite NFL team. You can find Locked On NFL Draft wherever you get Locked On Eagles. For Louis DiBiase and Gino Camilleri, this has been the Locked On Eagles podcast. We'll see you tomorrow. As always, thank you for downloading. Thank you for watching and listening. And let's go, Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.